Shalom. Shalom, shalom. Before I get started, let me give all praise and glory to Yahweh, Hashem, Shah, Hashem Kakadash, and double honors to the apostles and elders. Now we're gonna get into it with some reading of the scriptures, man, going into prophecy. Because hey man, that's all you gotta come in the spirit of Yahweh Shah as being in prophecy, man. You can't be a prophet and you don't have any prophecies. It's just that simple. So we're gonna get into it this quick reading. This may be a short camp or it may not, man. Who knows? Right now, the spirit is moving, so let's get to moving. His second Esdras. 9:1 says, he answered me then and said, measure thou the time diligently in itself. And when thou seest part of the signs past, which I have told thee before. So how do you measure the time? The time of Yahweh Shah returning. But how do you measure that? You line it up with the prophecies and the news articles that's going on. This whole war with Iran is a big part of biblical prophecy, man. And with Israel involved, that's a part of prophecy, man. And it won't be long before the least of the flock draw them completely out. And the least of the flock talking about Israel, and to draw them out is talking about America. Eventually this is going to go to a ground war, man. And it's going to take place. World War III is going to take place in the Middle East, the Levant. And all this is preparation, building up to that big day. Verse 2, then shalt thou understand that at the very same time wherein the highest will begin to visit the world which he made. So yeah, all this is leading up to when Yahweh Shah is getting ready to come back to visit the world, where Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shah is, on the way back to visit the world which he made, man. All you talking about, oh, there's no such thing as God. The Big Bang Theory, man just evolved. You're going to find out real soon, man. You're going to find out whatever you've been believing and what you told been wrong all your life. And that, hey, that a so-called black man by the name of Yahweh Shah is going to return and redeem his elect. We're right on the cups of this thing, man. We at the door. China came out with the, which is another indicator of measuring the time. China has come out with a commercialized, commercial, let's say, side of the RFID microchip for your brain, man, the brain chip, which is another major milestone in prophecy. So so Hey man, all these are the signs for you to measure the time diligently to let you know that hey, we're in the last days, man. We're in the very last days of this. And you so-called Negro Latinos and Native Americans are still twiddling your thumbs and looking stupid, man. You know, you're still worrying about Essence Fest, you know, 4th of July, all this stuff that doesn't matter, man. Instead of trying to get right with your power, Yahweh Bashim Yahushua, before it's too late. Verse 3. Therefore, when there shall be seen earthquakes and uproars of the people in the world, hey, do we need to go into the earthquakes? The big one in Venezuela, Japan, I believe one hit in the Philippines. You know, all these are telltale signs that, you know, those birthing pains they're speaking about. It might be in Isaiah, might be wrong though. But all this is building up to the return of Yahweh Shah, man. You know, he's getting closer and closer. The days are getting closer and closer for him to return. You know, so you're gonna see more earthquakes and uproars of the people. You got people in Albania over there tearing that bitch down, man. You know, they upset. You had was it Guatemala? I forget, but it's where Jake had. I think it's been a couple weeks since I saw it. You know, they was down there protesting. You know about the increase in the food, man. So you got uproars of the people, and all this is signs of all this shit coming to a head. Now where's this damn dog going? You know, all this is all signs to this thing coming to a head, man, to an end, which is beautiful. You know, man, the Lord, you're supposed to be glad that this is almost over. You know, you're supposed to be very, very thrilled that Yahweh Shah is coming back to redeem his elect. You know, that this nightmare will soon be over. You know? You know, we're in a nightmare, man. We're at the bottom. We get sick, we die. You know. We first fired, last hired. You know? Our women are whores. You know, the most out took their beauty away. You know, so we got the deal. You know, still got the northern tribes, but they whores too, man. You know, your woman doing what the hell she want to do. You know, and you got to sit there and grit your teeth and bear it, man. You know, this is hell. You know, you got to depend on one woman for some bucks. This is hell. You know, you always got to be counting your money. You know, every time you look around, there's another damn bill in the mailbox. You know, somehow I forgot about a bill. You know, I'm thinking, oh, I paid my tights. You know, I'm good. I got my money all put away. You know, guys. And then I get a text message earlier talking about I got a bill due. I said, damn, how the hell I forget that? You know, even when I do got some money to myself, there's always a damn bill that needs to be paid. So this is complete hell for a man that's in his right mind. You know? Scriptures say oppression make a wise man mad, man. You know, not only do I got bills, but then all my damn money getting taxed on top of it. You know, I work all these fucking hours for the week. You know, your gross look good. Then you look at your net, you like, man, it's some bullshit. You know? Fucking so-called white man got his hand in your fucking check before you even see it, man. And what is he doing with the money? Nothing. pissing it off, squandering it, man, giving it to everybody else, man. You know, he's giving your tax dollars to everybody else on the fucking planet, but the people here, man. You know, if your ass on welfare, you getting a piece of the pie. You getting some crumbs, you know. But anybody else that's working, you getting fucked over religiously, you know. So this is pure hell, man. Verse 4, then shalt thou will understand that the Most High spake of those things from the days that were before thee, even from the beginning. So before everything was even that, everything that you see, before it was even created, man, before you even born, the end was already thought of, you know? Before this hellhole was even thought of, man, this shithole by the name of New Orleans was even, you know, a thought in someone's mind. The end was already declared, you know, and it's beautiful, you know, because everything has an end, you know, and this place here is circling the drain. You know, just take a ride around town, man, and you see what the hell I'm talking about. You know, this is an advanced third world country, man. You know, this is just a notch before a third world, man. Just a notch, just one little notch, not even a strong notch. You know, it's fucking hell living here, and it just ain't here, man. You can go anywhere over the U.S. Same shit: crime, drugs, homelessness, decay, infrastructure, all shot. This is a collapsing empire, man. You know, everything you see is collapsing, man. This is when empires start to die. And then as you see, like I said, just take a ride. And there's no way this motherfucker coming back, man. No way. You know, it can't be revived. No politician's gonna bail you out of this. You know? Let's go on. Verse 5, for like as all that is made in the world hath a beginning and an end, and the end is manifest. So the end of this is manifest, man. Like I said, you got the war with Iran in the US and Israel, which eventually is going to turn into a full-blown World War III. You know, you got the RFID microchip, the mark of the beast is already here, the brain chip. You know, and your average empire only lasts about 250 years, man, on an average. So America turns 250 coming up, man. So these are lit. Well, I don't even say elect. The elite know this. So they ready to pull the plug on this place, man. You know, they had already looted the gold out of Fort Knox. You know, they done ran the deficit up, the debt. You know, they devalued the currency. You know, the fucking bankers then ran off with the money, man. And so what they're gonna do, you know, they're eventually gonna declare martial law. So they ready to cash in on the people. You know, they got all the money, all the gold, and all the resources. But what they don't have is you. They don't have full control of you. And they working on that right now as we speak, man. Plan been in the work for 50 plus years to get you people all microchip. You know? To make you nothing more than cattle. You know, have you tagged and surveilled 24/7. You know? They ready to take ownership of you, man. No more of you talking about, oh, I got constitutional rights. They're gonna do away with the Constitution. They got something in store, which is called a New World Order, where meaning they're gonna do what the hell they want to do. And if you're not in that top of that pyramid, in that capstone, then your ass is gonna pay the price, man. You're gonna have to be the burden bearer, if you will, You have to work in their factories, eat they fucking they crickets. Like Klaus Schwab said, man, you're gonna own nothing and be happy, man. You're gonna own nothing and be happy about it. So they're moving towards this new world order, whether you believe it or not. You know, it's a go. It's a green light. So even all that was even thought of in the beginning, man. And it says, "And the end is manifest." Verse 6. Even so, the times also of the highest have plain beginnings and wonder and powerful works and endings and effects and signs. Verse 7. And everyone that shall be saved and shall be able to escape by his works and by the faith whereby ye have believed. So, in order to escape all these said perils, you got to have the faith. Number one, you got to have the works. I need to read that over. It says, and everyone that shall be saved and shall be able to escape by his works and by faith where ye have believed. So you not only have faith, but you got to also believe it, man. And you got to do the work, just like I'm doing. You got to be doing something. You don't work, you don't eat. That goes for the Most High too, man. You're an able-bodied man. You got to get your ass up and do something. You know? So all these people talking about, oh, especially these Christians, talking about, oh, I'm saved. Saved from what? Your ass still here, man. What are you saved from? You still here. Some wild, crazy motherfuckers can just run in your house still and blow your damn brains out, man, and take what you got. But you talking about you saved. From what? Your ass ain't gonna be saved until your ass into that chariot, man. That so-called UFO. That's when you're gonna be officially saved. Because guess what? You still gotta go through martial law, the race riots, the famine, the plagues. All that's still on the menu, man. So you're not saved from anything. You can't. And then they love to say they're gonna get raptured. Your ass ain't getting raptured, man. You can't just think you're gonna get bailed out when shit about to get rough, you know? You think you just gonna be, in a poof out of here, man. No. Your ass gotta go through that trial, man. You gotta go through that fire. You know? You gotta go through martial law. You gotta go through, you ain't ate in 3-4 days, man. You gotta go through that. You on the move. You ain't had a good night's sleep in weeks, man. You 2 hours here, 3 hours there. Going from place to place, man, trying to stay alive. and you stupid ass Christians think you just gonna get, raptured out of all that. No, the most I need to know if your ass still gonna be faithful to the end, man. When you hear your neighbor getting their shit kicked in, you know, When you hear your neighbor getting her damn brains raped out, man. You know, you know, you got to go through all that. You got to hear that shit, man. The Lord want to know if you're gonna be faithful to the end, not when shit get tough and you ain't been through nothing and you want to get bailed out. It ain't gonna work that way. The Lord want to see how down you really are, man. You know, it's easy to say, "Oh, I trust in the Lord when everything good." You know, you can turn the lights on. You know, you can turn the faucet on, go to the store. But we talking about when all that shit stops, when the trucks stop running, electricity goes out, no food in the stores. You know, what you gonna do then, man? What are you gonna do when you open that damn pantry and that last can of sardines is just staring you in the face, and you got a damn family to feed, huh? You know. So we gonna see, man. You know, so the Lord is getting certain men ready on what's to come. You know, Lord, try your ass and see what you made of, man. See if you gonna bitch up. You know, when the shit get tough, or it look like you ain't gonna pull out of it something. You know, pull out of something. You know, he want to see if you gonna bitch up, man. You know, you talked all that good stuff when shit was smooth. You know, you all on your knees crying, praising the Lord. But when shit get rough, you know, you quiet as a mouse. You know, so a lot of people when get tried, man. You want to go through the fire. And like I said, hey, you might go 2, 3 days with no food, you know, sleeping on a bridge for a few hours. Then you got to get up and start moving again. You know, you got to go bug out. You know, find your bug out location, man. You know, all that's coming. You know, you're gonna have to deal with these elements out here, man. You know, and the wild beast on top of that. You know, what you gonna do with a damn a mob of fucking hungry pit bulls, man? You know, this city full of pit bulls. How you gonna fight off a fucking pack of pit bulls and you ain't ate in 3, 4 days? And they going on 3, 4 days a week plus. Hey, you gonna need the Lord to bail your ass out that situation, man. If not, you gonna be lunch meat, man. You know, you are going to be lunch meat out here in these streets. Let's go to 2nd Esdras 9, verse 8. Shall be preserved from the said perils. So yeah, like I just mentioned in verse 8 or verse 7, how you escape all these said perils. It says, and shall see my salvation in my land and from within my borders, for I have sanctified them for me from the beginning. So yeah, the Most High has sanctified them from the beginning. You know, the prophets, the elect, have been sanctified from the beginning. You know, and believe me, there's any day, man. Any day, this shit can just kick off. You know, any day. You know, they already hyping up a damn terrorist attack. You know, Israel steady drumming that up. Something bigger than 9/11, possibly. You know, they have to get the masses all shaken up, man. And if they need to do that to get more control of you, they gonna do it. What the hell is this going on? You know, they're gonna do what they need to do to get more control of you, the masses, and to further this war. You know, they need to get the opinion of the people. They need to change the approval, man. Everybody hates the war right now. So they got to do something to change the tide, man. You know, this is not a popular war right now. But believe me, they got something in the works. You know, they're gonna do something so diabolical to where you're gonna jump on the bandwagon to just go get them motherfucking Iranians, man. You know? You know, it's just a matter of time. Verse 9, then shall they be in pitiful case, which now have abused my ways, and they that have cast them away despitefully shall dwell in torments. So yeah, you so-called Negro, Latinos, and Native Americans, man, you're gonna be in a pitiful case. You know, you abuse the ways of the Heavenly Father, man. You know, and how you did that by not wanting to keep his ways. You know, you just say, I'm gonna do what I want to do. You know, you got that Frank Sinatra, you know, doing it your own way, and that damn Aleister Crowley spirit, man. Do as thou wilt. You know, and that wasn't in the deal. There was no clause in the covenant, man, where you say you're gonna keep the law, statute, and commandments of the Bible. And then it didn't have read the fine print where eventually we could just do what we want to do. That wasn't in the contract, man. You know, but let a nigga tell it. It was in the contract, you know. And that's the day they carry on like that's what was in there. You know, it ain't worship who I want to worship, serve who I want to serve, or you know, like I just said, do what the hell I want to do. That don't fly over with the Most High. You know, you can't keep saying, "Oh Lord, forgive me," and you keep doing the same shit over and over and over and over. Man. You know, Most High ain't no pushover, man. You know, you just can't fuck him over and think he ain't gonna fuck you over, man. You know, you just want to do what you want to do, and you winking, you know, kind of spiritually winking and hitting somebody in the side, like, oh, I got over on the Most High again. You know, you got no damn self discipline, and a lot of you Israelites don't have any self discipline. You know, you got unbridled lust. You know, and you act like a damn beast, man. You act and behave like a fucking beast. You know, and if you ain't keeping these laws, statutes, and commandments to the best of your abilities, then you nothing more than a beast. If I could find that, damn, I got to see if I could find that. You know, you outside the law, man. You're nothing but a brute beast. You know, we were given order and instruction, man. You know, we just can't do what the hell what we want to do, man. It says, then shall they be in pitiful case, which now have abused my ways, and they that have cast them away despitefully shall dwell in torment. So the Most High is going to torment you, man, because you not only you don't want to keep the law, but you despise the law. You know, you hate the law, man. You know, our people feel like they being bound, and you know, I can't have no fun. You can't do nothing. That's what a fucking nigga say, man. You know, you can't have no fun as an Israelite. You can't do nothing. But I'm here to tell you, and it's truth. You know, you really don't want to do a whole lot, man. Be truthful, man. You get to a point where you don't want to do nothing because you know all you're gonna do is run into some demon out here. You know, you pretty much start living your life as a stoic, man. You know, you don't want to be around too many people. You know, you go like, I could go here, but 9 times out of 10, you're gonna get into it with somebody, you know, or you just know it's gonna be a place full of nothing but demons, man. And you gotta sit here and listen to all this dumb shit, all this wickedness, man. You know, the conversation of the wicked is vexing. And you really just don't even want to hear it. You know, I don't want to hear about the damn catfish you caught last week, man. You know, you got a 10, 15 pound catfish. You know, or, you know, when I get them crabs, you know, I like to put that base seasoning and, you know, I put that Tony Chachere's on there. And, you know, I don't want to hear all that, man. That makes my flesh crawl, man. You know, sitting here watching you eat damn gumbo. You know, that turns my stomach. You know, like you know, somebody last week wanted me to come out and they was at a damn uh crawfish or seafood boil or something, huh? I'm like, I'm not going to that. Number one, I'm not gonna be able to eat anything. You know, I don't eat shellfish starters. Two, I'm not even gonna go sit amongst all that. Man. See you peeling and picking and sucking on heads. You know, I been fucking fell out or something, man, from the smell of that. You know, so you just choose to stay home. You know, I choose to do something with my woman and the dog, man. You know, it depends on what we want to do. You know, that's even limited too. But you know, she in the world, she like dumb shit. So you gotta kind of negotiate, you know. You know, because once you get into this truth, you realize it's just you. You know, this deal is with just you, man. The most I called me, he didn't call my woman. You know, so she doing what the world doing, you know. And I just got a better brunt of it, you know. You know, it's hell, man. Like I just said earlier, hey, this is hell. You know, so you know, it's some things I just flat out I'm not gonna go to. You know, all the Christmas celebrations and looking at Christmas lights and all that shit. I'm not with all that. You know, that's a flat out no. And now, you know, you want to possibly do a festival or something. Yeah, I can do that. But believe me, the whole time I'm there, I'm like, let's go. Cause you know, it won't be long for a demon just pop up. You know, so we went out last week, took out last week. So I probably got another few weeks until she get an itch again because she want to go somewhere else. You know, but until then, we're gonna be at the house on the weekend. We're gonna be at the house, chilling. Front yard, backyards. 10, verse 10, 2 Esdras 9 and 10. For such as their life have received benefits and have not known me. So you haven't known the Most High and you receive benefits, man. And including these government benefits. Where the fuck are you going to go? Your fucking sidewalk is fucked up right there. Like I said, it won't be long for a demon show up, man. I could be in the desert and then there's somebody just comes up on me, man. Jeez. Let's go on. For such as in their life have received benefits and have not known me. So you haven't known the Most High, man. You know, you've done whatever you wanted to do in your life. You can't even make this up. Oh, goodness. So, like I said, you receive benefits, have not known the Most High, man. Neither have you inquired. You know? Neither have you inquired. And all you know, you getting a check or you getting your food stamps or something, and that's all you care about, man. You know, you got your money for your you know, your $1100 car note, man. That's all you care about. When it comes to the Most High, you like, who needs the Most High? You know, he gonna come through anyway. Huh? You know, you treat the Most High like a side bitch, man. You know, a lot of you Israelites treat the Most High like a side bitch. You know, when you get time for him, you know, pull up on it, man. You know, he's always, you always got to make time for him some kind of way. You know, a little bit of time at that. But you don't be like, oh well, you know, I'm gonna do this, then for the Most High, Yahweh Shemel shot first. You know, I'm gonna put the work in. You know, I'm gonna start getting serious about this truth. No, you just like, when I need something, I'm gonna call it, man. When I need to be bailed out. And that's a lot of what our people do, man. Like this one video I was looking at, maybe last year it was out. You know, this whole rapper, whatever, I forget his name. But you know, he been a damn demon the whole time he been born. You know? Then he got into some trouble with the law, and his ass about to go to prison, and all of a sudden he all holding hands, praying, so he won't go to prison. You know? Any other time he was doing whatever he wanted to do. Number two, you know, doing whatever he wanted to do. And the minute he get in trouble, he ready to hold hands in a group prayer, man. You know, Jake is a trip. You know, these people on this sign are a whole trip. You know, you talking about some characters. Most High made something when he made you so-called Negro, Latinos, and Native Americans, man. Especially the so-called Negroes. They two trips. You know? Two trips. Verse 11. And they that have loathed my law while they had yet liberty. So yeah, you loathe the law, man. You can't stand the law, statute, and commandments. When a man, the Lord start bringing the scriptures out, the commandments out, it's like sunlight to a vampire, man. You start running back into the shadows, man, back into the darkness. You try to get back in that casket, man. You don't want to be alive. You know, Jake has made a covenant with death, man, and that's what they do. You start talking about, oh, you shouldn't be eating that, eating that pork chop, man. You will see a motherfucker head start spinning. And 4K, man. You tell him he shouldn't be eating pork, crawfish, or shrimp. It'd be like on The Exorcist, man. What you mean? I can't. I've been eating this all my life. My grandma and mama and them be eating this all their life. You know? Ain't nothing wrong with that. Ain't nothing wrong with me. But then you got 30, 40 prescriptions, though. You go to the medicine cabinet and you can just go down the alphabet, all the prescriptions he takes. But ain't nothing wrong with me. They would rather get into a knockout, drag out, man, with you than to think about keeping just a few of these laws, man. You want somebody to stop talking to you, start telling them about these scriptures, about these laws they should be keeping, and watch them disappear forever, man. They will duck you like the plague, man. You get tired of somebody, start bringing up the Bible, man. And watch them disappear. You got somebody, or loan them some money. Either the scriptures or loan them some money. You want to get rid of somebody. And call it, hey man, I need that money, but you really don't need it, but you just saying it, pretending like you want it. And you'll never see that MF again. Sometimes a few dollars is money well spent sometimes for some peace. If I gotta loan you a couple dollars to get you out of my life, I'm all for it. Where do I meet you to give you this money? or what's your cash out? How can I cash app you out my life? It says, where am I? Verse 11? Yeah. And they that loathe my law while they had yet liberty. So yeah, you don't have free will. You have liberty to do things. And when as yet place of repentance was unto them, understood not, but despised it. Well, yeah, Jacob is going to despise this truth. Jacob does not want to hear, you can't commit adultery. You can't sleep with your brother's girlfriend. Even though that's his ex-girlfriend, you still can't have sex with him. You can't sleep with any kind of man's wife, man. No matter whether he a so-called white man, so-called Chinese man, or whatever kind of man, you can't sleep with no other man's wife. Because Jacob get into this like, oh, well, they heathens. You can sleep with the heathens. No, you can't even touch the heathens' wives, man. And that rubs some people the wrong way in this truth. I don't even want to meet your woman. I don't want to shake her hand. I barely even want to speak to her. I'm cool with a fist bump. And we ain't even got to do that. Just say, hey, that's my woman. All right, cool. Throw my hand up. Don't even bring her around no more after that. You know, I don't even want to talk. Of that. That's just me. And you got like-minded brothers like myself. But it is what it is. Because adultery is real big in Israel, man. And we've been talking about men of the Lord. I heard some stories, man. Well, portrayed to be men of the Lord. They straight up taking men wives. Like this man's married. He come into a fold, and they're like, "Oh no, brother, you on a lower level. You're a lower brother. You got to take your wife, man." And these motherfuckers went for it, man. Actually taking men wives, man. Like before they even got into the truth, while it was in the world, they went down to the courthouse or whatever, did the wedding, whole thing, and then fast forward, let's say 5, 10 years later, you meet men out here on the highways and byways, and you get into a fold or camp or something, and then the minute you get into my, hey brother, we gotta take your wife from you, man. That'll be the day you leave, man. That's supposed to be the day you fucking leave. That's adultery, no matter how you slice it, man. Your woman's still bound by you as long as you still living, man. But yet they'll get on the camera and say they holy than thou, holy than thou, man. But the whole time, you got your wife at the house, man. And she just as big as dummy as you are because she went along with it too. And you already know what the scriptures say about adultery, man. What you supposed to do about that? That's some punishable unto death. But we're still in the grace period. I gotta add that in there. We're still in the grace period. But you think you're gonna keep committing adultery and the Most High don't do nothing about it? You wrong. Because it was this one guy they called the Seattle Snake. He was, he had a thing for other brothers' women, man. And somehow the Most High had his ass in a hotel, and somehow he got his ass thrown out of a 5-story window, man. Don't know how it happened. All I know, he ended up thrown out of a 5-story hotel, man. Window, pavement. So you can't keep doing shit and thinking Most High won't do nothing about it, man. It says, let's go to verse 12. The same must know it after death by pain. So yeah, you're gonna know it after death by pain. But Jake, that's the only way he loves to learn, man. It's the hard way. And the Most High, Yahweh Shem Yahushua will give it to you the hard way, man. However you can understand it, that's the way they're gonna give it to you. Let's go to Matthew 24, and we might close out on that. Matthew 24, verse 7. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. So yeah, this is the one you call Jesus. That's saying You know, he's letting you know what would be the signs of him getting ready to return, man. Verse 8, and all these are the beginnings of sorrows. Yeah, the beginning of sorrows, to where you're going to have a day dedicated to you Israelites, known as Jacob's trouble. And it's definitely dedicated to you Israelites, man. You know, to where he's gonna have it get his hands on you one good last time. You know, he's gonna clamp down on you and put you to death, man, in mass numbers. Because, like I just said in Second Esdras 9, man, you know, you had liberty, but you despised the law, man. You loathed the law. So, what can you do with a untamable creature, man? You know, you got spiritual rabies, man. You foaming at the mouth. You know, and the most humane thing to do for the Most High is to put you out of your spirit, man. Put you out of your body. You know, how do you get rid of a wild, crazy, rabies infested animal, man? You know, you take them out, you know, give them one to the whatever, man. And that's a lot of you Israelites, man. You got spiritual rabies, foaming at the mouth, can't tell you nothing. So Yahweh Shema Shah is gonna do you a favor, man, and put you down, man. He's gonna put you down in mass numbers, coming up here very soon. You know, and that's just, it is what it is, man. You know, and you so-called Negro Latinos and Native Americans jump on there and tell them, oh, Jesus Christos, especially the Northern Kingdom. That's all they know is Jesus Christos. You know, it getting so bad for the Northern tribes. Man, they starting to worship, what's that? Starting to get into Islam, man. Islam. You know, they starting to get into Islam, and you already got the cartels, so-called cartels. They into Satanism, man. So Jake is going backwards. Now, Jacob's trouble for the 2/3 of the nation of Israel is going to be right here in America. All of you here in America are going to get served up the worst. You know, it's going to be a bloodbath on these streets for you. You know? And the scriptures also speak about purging the rebels. You know, we're going to have to purge the rebels. Lord willing, I'm of that number. And we're going to have to purge you, man. Either you're going to serve Yahweh Shah and get down with Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shah, or hey, man, we're going to have to put you to death, man. You know, and this is after the destruction, after the elect come down, after the so-called UFOs come down. You ready to set the order, the order in the earth straight. And if you're still in that defiance, you just want to do what you want to do, spirit, and you can't believe a so-called black man is the, you know, Most High's son. Hey, man, we just gonna get rid of you, man, and we're gonna catch you in the kingdom. You know, but you're gonna have to submit to Yahweh Shah, the throne of Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shah, and that's it. You know, and then you're gonna be good, man. If you submit, if you submit, you're gonna be okay. You know, and if you don't, you're still gonna be okay. Because we're gonna catch you on the flip side. We're gonna catch you in the kingdom. The kingdom should be built by the end, man. You know, the kingdom of heaven, which will be on earth, is gonna be fully built by the end by the time you come back around in the reincarnation. And then you're gonna come back good, man. You're gonna come back good. Yeah, like the scriptures say, man, the most I kill you, he have done you some good, man. He has done you good if he killed you. So hey, I'm ending up on that. Before I get out of here, I'm gonna give all praise and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakapadash. Shalom.